Death by Tyranny podcast. It's been a while, and that's not by accident. As we start to bring back the old camera setup, the old microphone setup, and just the general early days aesthetic, we're going to be trying to shift over to a couple different platforms. Now, when I originally started the podcast, I wasn't very educated on the streaming platforms or the technology. So it was kind of a learn as you go, if you will. And we still have hiccups here and there. The last podcast we did had some audio difficulties because of the internet connection we had. And that kind of just made me realize for the amount of time and money that I've put into this podcast, I wasn't getting enough out of it. And now that there is such a huge shift to go other places to, I have it set on do not disturb, and I'm still getting fucking calls from spammers. Anyways, now that there's a huge shift to go to different platforms to stream, like Rumble is getting a huge push ever since the last 2022 midterm elections. You see Steven Crowder, which we will talk about today. And this isn't going to be the longest stream I've ever done by any means. I only got about an hour to just kind of update and inform what's going on here. I might try to do maybe a show once a week here on YouTube and Facebook as we gradually move over to try some of the other platforms. When I started this podcast, there was also no way to go live over on Gab as well. It had to all be pre-recorded, and then I actually was getting a decent amount of engagement over on Gab, but I always had difficulties with the uploads. Same thing with Spotify. There was more engagement over on Spotify on the audio version only, and I would have corrupted files every time I would try to upload them, and so it just became a big pain in the ass. And not only that, but the last 2 or 3 weeks that I've been absent and not doing the podcast, so much has happened. It almost seems every single day, just when you think that you have this narrative figured out, it is changing. It went from Milo, Ye, and Nick Fuentes really taking everybody by shock and awe, to storming off of Tim Pool, to Milo turning on everybody and being kind of outcasted by the Yay, whatever you want to call that there, the campaign. And then just today, when you think that things can't get any worse, you have Alex Jones come on Steven Crowder, which has to be by far the biggest out in the open grifter when it comes to politics I have ever seen, and kind of not really denounce Nick Fuentes and Ye, but just make it very publicly known that he disagrees with the way in which they are trying to go about whatever it is that they're trying to go about. And that's a huge issue we've seen over the last week as well. We don't even know what's trying to be accomplished. Well, at least some of us don't know. I, on the other hand, think that it's very obvious what's going on. So you have Steven Crowder in this interview with Alex Jones today coming out and saying that he really finds issue with the way that Ye and Nick Fuentes is going about this free speech movement, and that their free speech is putting a hindrance on his free speech, which is almost like an oxymoron. And what he's getting at is what Steven Crowder is really saying at the end of the day is I've found a spot in the Zog machine that I can get away with just a limited amount of bullshit while still making my money, while still appeasing the deep state and whoever you think that runs it. And so while it may look like Steven Crowder rocks the boat politically, he absolutely does not. What he does is he gives it about 48 hours, if not longer, to see what the general take from the public is, from the actual culture itself, not Fox News. And that's why it seems like Steven Crowder is ahead of the game. But he's not. He's taking his cues from the culture on the streets. And in a lot of ways, in the past, he has stolen Nick Fuentes' ideas. And it's kind of funny to even speak about it in this manner because when I first started this podcast, I would talk about Nick Fuentes and America First with the America First background. I did a short video clip of me at some of Nick's rallies, and nobody had really ever heard of Nick. And so it's weird that all these outlets and all these publications are coming out and saying, Nick Fuentes is obviously a Nazi sympathizer and supporter, and what they're saying on Alex Jones is actually just trying to minimize the damage of what they're saying, and that's never been the case. All these people, what they are doing is taking small little segments, and I have to remind you, these are really small segments. You have to understand that Nick Fuentes has done something like 1,100 episodes, and those episodes have gone anywhere from an hour to 3 hour long. So you're probably talking about 3,000 hours of audio that Nick Fuentes, from the time he was 18 until now, which is still a very very young man. And I'm not trying to say, hey, I'm defending what he is saying because it's taken out of context and the things that are taken out of context are wrong. No, I'm flat out just defending him, period. So, one of the clips that people have been using to give evidence that Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist or Nazi sympathizer is that he came out and he had a clip that said something along the lines of Donald Trump was a cuck for denouncing white supremacy. And that being out of context in the sense that he was really trying to get at Trump should have never had to say anything about it to begin with. In the same way that Alex Jones today goes on Steven Crowder and tries to mock and belittle Nick Fuentes after Nick was one of the only people to really take his side during the Sandy Hook things and say that he had nothing to apologize for. He was practicing his free speech and his rights as a journalist, and journalists get it wrong sometimes. But that doesn't mean that you sue them for $2 billion or something ridiculous. Not only that, but Nick Fuentes was one of the only people standing beside Alex Jones on January 6th. So they have been in the trenches together. And for Alex Jones to come on Steven Crowder, of all people, and kind of throw shots at Nick Fuentes was very uncalled for. And I'm sure Nick will have some things to say about this, but I just bring up that to say that the clip that the media is using, where Nick says that Donald Trump is a cuck for denouncing white supremacy, that was kind of in the same context. Alex Jones didn't need to go on Steven Crowder and say anything. He was already kind of backpedaling and letting it be known in the interview that he didn't agree with what was being said as far as them saying they love Nazis and all the other things. And then the rest of the clips that have come out about Nick to support and give evidence that he might be a Nazi sympathizer or white supremacist are at the very most satire. And you can say that it is poor judgment and maybe not the best kind of humor to be used in political situations or when you are trying to educate a youthful crowd. But that's what brought that youthful crowd into politics to begin with. Not to mention, you will never change the culture if you are not trying to be ahead of it. Just like Steven Crowder always seems to be ahead of the game when it comes to the kind of conservative GOP Republican humorous commentary, he's really not, because he's never been the one to come out and really push the envelope. Has never been that way. He found a very um, good way to grift and to keep hidden the fact that he is stealing from other movements, from other content creators, to make it seem like he's ahead of the curve. And this is why I really think before any more conservatives, any more Christians, any more people that have in the past followed Nick, uh, amongst all of the platforms he has been kind of canceled on and moved to a new one, understand that one thing that has always been a characteristic of Nick Fuentes is that he has always pushed the envelope. And 9 times out of 10, if not all 10 times, he has pushed it in the direction that everyone else seems to follow. And that is what I think that is seeing in Nick Fuentes. He is seeing that he is the new commentator, the new political genius that is going to shape what the new conservative party will be. We know that the ingredients and the instructions that the GOP is doing right now and is trying to get back to with DeSantis does not work. The people that are moderate, the people that want bland vanilla ice cream, are always going to lean a little bit to the left, because all the basic people in the world want to seem like they're not basic. So they will always lean a little bit to the side of the people who aren't doing anything extraordinary, who aren't being geniuses and thought leaders, but instead are just dyeing their hair blue to make it seem like they are different. That's not Nick. Nick Fuentes is a young man that can walk into the room and look very much basic, but warp and shock your mind with his thoughts and what he is saying alone. And you have to remember that. That is why just a year, 2 years ago, maybe not too many people had heard of Nick Fuentes. And he literally spoke it into existence to be working with Ye right now. Not many people can do that. He is a political thought leader that is once in a generation. So I think what Alex Jones did today with Steven Crowder is going to come back and kind of bite him in the ass. And if you really pay attention to I don't know, the tone in his voice, how he looked during the interview with Crowder, it just seemed not very authentic, realistic. That's the word I'm looking for. He seemed fake. He seemed phony. He seemed like it was being forced. He seemed like he was being made to come on Steven Crowder to say something so he wasn't any further punished than what he has already been. There is an argument to be made that Alex Jones doesn't have a whole lot to lose anymore. He has lost everything. But somehow he still holds on to enough to where he can live a comfortable life. He can still come on and do a show on InfoWars. So there is still something there for Alex Jones to lose. And I would almost imagine the same people that give Steven Crowder his talking points are the same people that called Alex Jones and said, look, you have to come out and say that you do not agree with the kind of free speech that was being displayed on your platform, or we will take whatever else you have left. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I don't want to get into it a lot here because, like I said, we are going to try to get all the old aesthetics of the podcast back and the cameras up and running and figure out where we're going to be doing this podcast in the future. And I want to save some of these topics for those podcasts because I think they're important ones. For whatever reason, no one that is on the fence or, only follows what the mainstream is saying is getting it. They act as if Ye and Nick Fuentes and people alike, and Steven Crowder to some extent, just weeks ago, when they were in favor of what these people were trying to do, until it turned out they went too far. And keep this in the back of your head as well. Steven Crowder still has White Lives Matter t-shirts on his website, which he stole and approved of from Ye, and is still selling them to this day because that's something that Ye said that he agrees with. But at the same time, he has made 2 to 3 shows in the last week kind of denouncing and backpedaling. Alex Jones, Steven Crowder, everyone except Ben Shapiro and the fucking Jewish Daily Wire have come out and at one point or another spoke on this kind of Jewish media, Jewish mafia subject, or the JQ, if you will, without getting themselves in trouble. But the problem with what all of they have done in the past is that they haven't taken it far enough. They haven't really pushed it out into the open to the point where people are forced to educate themselves so they do not sound ignorant. And that is what must happen. There are going to be people that support Kanye and Nick Fuentes that are now going to be forced to go and educate themselves on what they are talking about. Why did Ye come out and say, I love Hitler? What was the main objective of them doing that? And understand that both of those people are geniuses in their own right and in their lane and what they do. And what makes them a genius is that they are very productive and they have found ways to maximize their time and effort in what they do. And while saying I love Hitler might not seem like the smartest move at the time, it got the most done in the direction that they're trying to go into in the shortest amount of time, with the littlest amount of appearance they needed to do. Because not only were they pushing for free speech on someone's show like Alex Jones, who says they are a free speech absolutist, and that's the exact reason why Alex Jones didn't have to go and say anything about what Kanye and Nick Fuentes said on his show. He should have just supported their right to say what they wanted to say, and that be the end of it. But not only is it forcing the idea that free speech isn't really free, there is a limit of what you can say that doesn't hurt anybody, where on the other end of that word that you finish or that sentence, you will be punished. So not only was Ye doing that when he said, I love Hitler, was pushing the bounds of free speech, he was also forcing people to look at their morality. Well, here it is in 2022 where I call myself a Christian, but am I really? Do I love everyone? So not only is he fighting and combating cancel culture, pushing the envelopes of free speech, he's also making Christians question their morality and what it has been shaped into in today's culture, the limitations that Christians give theirself because of in a lot of ways and in a lot of instances, Jewish people, not all, but Jewish people that control media sites and social media companies and Hollywood that are funding movies. So that they have forgotten because they were made to forget that we were supposed to love everybody, and this idea of forgiveness, one of the most basic principles of Christianity, we have forgotten. And we were made to forget this by this Judeo-Christian culture that has kind of overshadowed true Christianity in this country. So keep going with the narrative that Ye is crazy, but understand that he is not. What he said might have sounded crazy to you, but in reality, he was saying the most productive thing he could have possibly said at the time, what which makes him exactly what he claims to be, a genius in what he does and in culture and shaping it. In my personal opinion, Yeezys are not the most uh, aesthetically pleasing shoe, but they became very popular. And that's because he is a genius when it comes to those things. The outfit that he chose to wear while he made the appearance on Alex Jones, very abnormal. Not something I would go out and rush to the store to buy. However, a lot of people are using that image to prove points. It is an image that means something now. And that in which it means is something that a lot of people agree with, but cannot say. So, for as abstract as that clothing look to you, it is now a symbol of something. And that is another point that Kanye or Ye knows what he is doing. And I have found at least Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, and probably whoever it is that will next host Nick Fuentes and Kanye keep saying that Ye is not educated upon the things that he is speaking. But then we'll follow it up with that Nick Fuentes is a very smart and educated young man. So if Ye felt like he was not educated about the subjects in which he speaks of, he only needs to turn a couple of feet to his left or his right and ask Nick. And these same people that will admit in the very same conversation that Nick is a very smart, talented young man will say that Nick doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the Holocaust. But he does know about historical events, he does know about foreign policy, which would make him a very good candidate to know exactly what the fuck he was talking about when it comes to the Holocaust. So, like I said, what is happening in the last 3 weeks that seems to orbit whatever Nick Fuentes and Ye have been doing? What follows that is a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of disingenuine people. And maybe just because that one sentence, I love Hitler, did so much more than most people are giving it credit to. Maybe it did something else. Maybe it has found a way to finally show some of these social media influencers how you can tell if they're fake or not. And unfortunately, I think we are going to find out that a lot of the people that we have come to love and respect have their limits. So we can love and respect them for the entertainment that they give us, but do not hold them up on a pedestal to say as if they are the ones that are the symbols for free speech and independence, because they are not. And Alex Jones showed us that today. He's been right about a lot of things. He has taken a lot of people that were not in the know and put them in the know. He has pushed a lot of conversations, envelopes, which have led to good things and brought spotlight to some of the evil things that happen in our country. But that doesn't mean that Alex Jones doesn't have his limits. And I think that is admirable of Ye. He has had the same thing happen to him that Alex Jones has had happen in the last months, where they have been stripped of all their wealth, so that the only thing that we can see is the man who they are. And Ye decided to keep pushing. Alex Jones is waving the white flag. So we love Alex Jones for what he has given us in the past, and where maybe he has brought some of us today. But it does look like Alex Jones is officially stepping out of the fight. It does look like Alex Jones has finally decided to stop pushing the envelope. So it's very unfortunate. It's a very sad day. Um, I don't know if I want to. I had two more things that I really wanted to talk about, but not being on here for so long, I kind of had to talk about the Kanye Ye Fuentes thing, because I have followed Fuentes for a little over 2 years now, and I've not really seen him make a bad judgment call. I've seen some of the things he said taking out of context make him look bad, but in reality, that is not the case at all. It just goes to show you that for everyone you want to call a grifter, and a lot of them very well may be, but Nick has never really strayed away from being a devout Catholic, someone who stands on his principles and morals, and has not ran or shifted one bit when it comes to those morals. And that's very admirable. There are a lot of people that we have been duped into following over the last, hundred of years. And he is one of the most consistent people I have yet to see. And for that reason, I will continue to follow him, even when other people that I enjoy listening to say that he's an asshole, or he's not worth listening to, or is ignorant, because he has always shown me that that just isn't the case. And this is a way bigger subject, and is way more important than just how Jewish people feel about him coming out and saying he loves Hitler. This is literally going to end up shaking the foundation of our country. It is finally going to get to some of the root causes of where we were and how we have fallen so far. And that is why this story, no matter how crazy or absurd it might seem to be, is one of the most important stories out there. What he said and how mad people are getting about it, who's getting mad about it, the people who are canceling, the people who are hunting down and silencing certain people, it's for a reason. And those very same people have been pushing narratives in our country that have made us fall as far as we have. There were people who didn't know any better that allowed the kind of openness to support the LGBTQ community, are the same people that were duped and will be duped to accept the fact that adults should be allowed to groom children, because they're too afraid to push back on the mainstream and the people that hold the true power and influence. They are not educated or smart enough to think on their own, to realize that what they are doing when they openly shame this behavior is the correct thing to do. It blows me away how we will hold things to a standard for a reason, but as soon as we are forced to watch it on Netflix, as soon as the ADL forces us not to say certain things, we just automatically accept it. And that is just absurd. I Another reason why I've decided that I don't think that I can stream on Facebook or YouTube any longer is just the simple fact that no matter how much I say that I am 100% against the things that they say that we're not supposed to say, that I will continue to say them, I'll be deplatformed. So to invest any more in this, I mean, at the very most, what I can do is wait until everything is set up over on Rumble or Odyssey or somewhere else, and then actually come on here and prove the point, which is exactly what Ye is doing. And it just blows me away on how many people are exacting exactly like the left in saying that they are offended, that what Ye is saying is hurting Jewish people. No, it's not. And in fact, I hope Ye is as smart as he claims to be, because there is a alternate timeline where this may put us in a very difficult situation. It may put us in a timeline where the ADL and those same people that hold the power that happen to be Jewish, that practice nepotism because they are Jewish, more power to censor us, more power to go after our bank accounts. And that's why we cannot just give up on what has been started. It is too late. We are in the final chapter of this country, or we are in the beginning of the comeback story of this country. And I believe this is going to end up playing a huge, huge part in whichever that may be. So, like I said, I don't know how much I want to get into it because this goes so deep. I mean, it is people that opposed Christianity that brought on the feminist movement. The feminist movement brought on some of the compassion and push forward to the LGBTQ community, which is now this snowball effect in which no one seems to be able to stop, no matter how much the majority. I don't even think it's a silent majority anymore. They're speaking up. They are just being destroyed. They're being told that they cannot combat the snowball that is rolling down the hill, which we all know inevitably ends up into being that same LGBT community that has brought us the transgender community, which is just the acceptingness and praising of mental illness. And now we are being forced through our education system to allow that very toxic way of thought and disease into our children's heads. And it all started somewhere. It all started when that snowball was just a snowflake, and that snowflake kind of looked like a 6-point star. And just for all these people that keep saying, well, stop naming all of them. Don't say that it's Jewish people, because we are, as uneducated as we are taking that as all Jewish people. Why don't you name those individuals? Well, we can name those individuals that led the feminist movement. We can name those Jewish peoples that lead the porn industry and run the sex trafficking rings like Epstein. But at the end of the day, all of those people keep ending up being Jewish. So however you feel about it, at the end of the day, it would seem that for some reason, all of these evil people that are leading our society today and really driving the collapse of this country are of one race, one ethnicity. And because we are not allowed to talk about that, because there are organizations like the SBLC and the ADL that can punish people for millions of dollars and deplatform them, is all the more evidence to show you that the fact that these people, these individuals, the fact that they are Jewish has more to do with it than you're letting lead on. And quite frankly, it's disgusting. It's disgusting how Kanye is sitting on a show talking about peace and love and loving everybody and getting back to God and really our fundamental ideas of morality and trying to make this country a better place when almost every single channel, almost every single social media influencer is coming out and using that as evidence that Kanye West is crazy, should be all the more reason and evidence you have to know that these people are once again doing the exact same thing that we started this conversation off with, you know, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. It is in our blood to be tribe-like. This is why you see uh, black people stick up for other black people in some cases when they don't even know what the hell is going on. It is why, for I would imagine, 99% of this black people in this country will come to the defense of George Floyd because he is a black man. They are doing what their DNA calls for and to be tribalistic and to protect their own, even though it is common knowledge that George Floyd was a bad person and that he was, an evil person, but they still decided to see him as a martyr than a villain because of that DNA structure that tells them to be tribe like. And I'm not trying to say, like, sound insensitive or racist. White people do the same thing. Jewish people absolutely do the same thing. And that's exactly what we're calling out here, that Jewish people have been the only ones that have been allowed to, in the shadows, be allowed to practice nepotism and kind of this we're not going to hire you because you're not Jewish. We're going to hold all the power to ourselves. They're the only ones that are allowed to practice that out in the open anymore, to the point where even black people are calling it out and saying this is bullshit. But the one big difference and the difference and the reason why this has to stay in the spotlight is not only is the Jewish community and the individuals that just happen to be Jewish are the ones being allowed to get away with this kind of stuff, but it is the white people that are being punished for it. It is white people that cannot come out in defense of their race and their culture. Every Netflix show that is on right now, it is brainwashing you to tell you that you should not try to keep your heritage pure, that you to be cool, to be looked up at as a hero, you have to take a white person and dilute his bloodline with some type of other ethnicity. It is the fact that white people are being punished for being white in this country while everyone else is coming out and saying it is the white people that are Nazis and bigots and racist. And then every time they say, well, look, our evidence is that white people control this, 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 and this. It just so happens that they're not white. They are of Jewish ethnicity or have converted to that religion. And they get very upset and very mad when you point that out. They liked it better when they could slide by under the line where all the minorities in America thought that, in fact, it was the majority that was taking advantage of them. When in reality, that just wasn't the case. It was another minority in this country that was taking advantage of all of us. And while it might not be every Jewish person in this country, for a large portion of the bad actors, for the evildoers, for the ones that have brought this country to its demise, most of them, if not probably all of them in some way, whether it be influence or actually being, they are Jewish. So we can get into those conversations at a later time when we're on a different platform, because to be quite frank, whether it be YouTube or Facebook, there is no following for that. I learned that a long time ago, that as soon as I brought up my distaste for the support and appeasement of Israel, got me in hot water, so to speak. But I would love to show you how the lines connect the dots in future podcast, as well as I would love to show you how this passion around the world, the globalism cabal, is being ruled by only a few people controlling the whole entire globe, and in which every single time they go for the civilians' weapons. And you are seeing this in multiple places that most people in the US would think are in the now, like they have common technologies, they have cars and women go to school and all this shit, but they are still being disarmed and killed in those countries. Like China, Christians are being kicked out of Ukraine right now. There's a lot of just kind of modern societies that are falling apart. And one of the first things to come was disarming of the civilians. We are seeing the last kind of strong efforts of this taking place in Canada. And you will see the civilian population of Canada, if they are not already being tortured and under tyranny, it is very short to come. And even though this is just blatantly obvious, you still have 50% of this country, one half of the political spectrum in this country, that is pushing for the disarming of civilians. And it always starts the same. And this is why all of their arguments are irrelevant. This is why all of the ex-military people, the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, saying that we just don't need war type weapons. They don't want to take our guns. We just shouldn't be allowed to have assault type weapons, is all bullshit. Because most of the violent crime that is taken out in at least our country is by handguns, and a very tiny portion of it even being committed by rifles, a smaller portion of that tiny portion being assault rifles. That should be all the evidence that you need, that they're not just going to stop at your AR-15s, your AK-47s. They will eventually get to the handguns. They will eventually get to the shotguns. It would only make sense. The facts all point to that demise. People have had the handbook for disarming civilian populations for a long time, and it is still working in 2022. And only the smart populations and very small countries are actually trying to turn this around. And so, as much as it seems like we live in the freest country in the world, we are still being faced with some of the most strictest free speech bullshit, as well as constantly being under the threat of being disarmed. Like, at what point, what has to happen to wake up a civilian population to the point where they say this is not a political differences battling out which idea is better. This is history repeating itself. These are civilians being silenced and civilians being disarmed, and we all know how that story ends. So even though it seems crazy, it seems like we will lose, it is worth fighting for. It was always worth fighting for. That's why this country exists. Because that idea of free speech and civilians being able to defend themselves and hold the same amount of physical power to commit violence as the federal government, that's why we're here today. And how quickly we have forgotten, how quickly we have been duped into falling. And we got to figure out where this is. So, as much as it sucks, as much as it might hurt, as much as it might seem like certain people are attacking groups, we still have to go down that path to figure out how this is being allowed to have happen again. And at the end of the day, if it comes out that all the people that are trying to implement these things that bring demises to empires end up being Jewish, then we have to figure out why that is. Never in any of that did we say storm the Capitol. We never said kick out all the Jewish people in America. We just said, hey, this seems to be a reoccurrence. We have to figure out why that is. But, Holocaust. Anyways, I got to go pick up my son from homework club. I love you guys. God bless America first. Keep all the freedom fighters in your prayers because it seems to be like no one else has their back except for God. Stay safe, stay prepared. God bless America first. Peace, y'all.